our longest-running global programs have been focused on Latin America. This year, we created several new resources and programs in Spanish and Portuguese in collaboration with partners in the region. Now in its fourth year, Out and Equal Brazil Forum brings together hundreds of executives and workplace advocates. These leaders have gone on record in the public square to affirm their support for the LGBTQ community, no matter the tides of politics. Brazil is Latin America's largest economy and a key player on the global stage. We hope you'll join us December 2nd and 3rd for 2 half days of what will be a widely attended Brazil Forum. It is true that any conversation about Latin America as a whole needs the caveat that the region is not monolithic. Latin America is a diverse region that has seen recent advancement of LGBTQ equality at the legal and private sector levels. But significant challenges remain in some countries where the community faces marginalization and violence. The practical reality is that LATAM is also a delineation that many companies make in order to organize and structure their overall diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. To that end, we were honored to have a panel of corporate and civil society leaders talk about their perspectives on change and opportunities for greater inclusion. On a personal note, I have worked across Latin America on LGBTQ workplace inclusion for a decade and been inspired by these leaders, counted on their counsel and friendship, and I'm so grateful that all of you get to hear from them today. Welcome to all of you. We are covering the Americas right now from Washington, Buenos Aires, Mexico City, Sao Paulo. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you at Summit. All of you have provided such leadership over the years, and personally, I count you amongst my friends and those that inspire me every day. So thank you again for joining us. I'm excited for the conversation. So with that, I think let's have everyone go around, starting with Arivera, Carla, Javier, Delphi. If you can say your name and a little bit about yourself.
My name is Arivera. I'm activist, trans activist in Mexico, and I'm working in agenda inclusions, laboral inclusions for LGBT people and LGBT people deprived of liberty in jail, no?
Yes.
And this work is very hard in this time, pandemic time. It's very hard. But thank you for invitation in this panel.
Thank you so much, Arivera. It is an honor to have you with us. Arivera is someone I consider a friend and a hero.
Thank you.
Carla?
Okay, it's my turn. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Carla Arnais. I am the head of talent and diversity for Latin Canada and Bahamas in JP Morgan. It is an honor to share this panel with such amazing professionals and friends and people. Thank you so much for inviting me. I started my career in the financial industry 20 years ago in Bank of Boston, and I have, very focused on the diversity and inclusion actions, initiative, policies. I started more than 10 years ago. I love it. It's my passion, and well, it is amazing to be focused on the things that touch hearts. And diversity is one of them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carla. Delphi.
Okay, hello. My name is Delfina Daglio. I lead the diversity and inclusion programs in IBM for 5 countries in Latin America. I am very, very pleased to say that I have my dream job. I absolutely love what I do. I'm passionate about inclusion. I believe that when people can bring their authentic selves to work, they can really be more productive, more innovative, and they are happier. So I think we are moving forward in the region. I think there's still so much to do, and I'm honored to be part of this panel. And I think it's very important that we have these kinds of events where we really put these issues on the agenda of every company or an organization in the region. So thank you for the invitation and the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Delfina. And Javier.
Hello, Javier Constante, President of DOW Latin America. I'm originally from Argentina, but I was living for many years in Switzerland for the past 10 years. And I have 30 years in DOW, same number of years that I'm married with my husband, Carlos. Although, okay, in those times there was not same-sex marriages, so formally married for 11 years. And it's an honor for me to be part of this panel with such a prestigious group of people. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much, Javier. And with my whole heart, I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to welcome you to the 2020 Out and Equal Summit. And very personally, I want to thank you all for your friendship over the years, your partnership in the work, and your inspiration, because it's definitely been a challenging year. And when I think of inspirational conversations I've had with Delfina in Buenos Aires, or talking with Arivera and Carla in Mexico City, watching Javier and the DOW team, these are the events and the moments and the people that really keep me going. So thank you all so much. So first, let me start with everyone. How are you? Taking away the work, taking away everything else, how are you feeling right now? Carla.
You know, I am really good. I think that I am, you know, very grateful now with all the things that are happening in my family. You know, we adapt very well to this pandemic. Of course, has been hard. Okay, it is amazing the time of dedication that we put in the jobs, that the hours schedules are increasing. A little tired, it's the reality. And sometimes I feel anxious, same as some people, because we don't know what will happen when this will finish. We are facing the worst, you know, crisis right now, and we need to be conscious of that. But at the same time, you know, I feel privileged to continue working, to be connected, to be here with my family that is healthy. My father is good. We connect with my sisters, and well, I feel privileged in the holistic view. My kids are really well, you know, taking classes virtually. For them, it's a new world. Of course, I fight a lot with the video games, but that is the way that they are connecting. That is the social life that they are, you know, having now, and we need to be flexible with that. But well, it is, you know, the reality, and as I mentioned, I am really grateful with God.
Super, thank you, Carla. I think so many parents who feel fortunate enough to have our children healthy and at home, if we have the abilities and the fortune, we are also fighting the video games. That, Delphi, who's raising some small children, Delphi, how are you doing?
Well, I have to agree with Carla. I think I'm overall very, very well. Of course, it's a roller coaster of emotions, and not every day is the same. But again, I'm blessed that I still have a job, that all of my family is healthy. It's difficult not to be able to see our friends and members of our family who don't live with us. My husband's family is in another city, and we haven't seen them for almost 8 months. But all in all, I'm very well. It's difficult sometimes. I have 3 small children. The older one is 6, and the smallest one is not even 2 years old. So it's hard to be working sometimes with the 3 of them on top of me, and I don't have to fight video games yet, but it's hard when they say, okay, Mom, you're working all day long, Monday to Friday. On the weekends, you're cleaning, cooking, and tidying everything up, and you don't have time to play. So sometimes I say, wow, I'm with them 24 hours a day. This is the greatest gift for my family, to be able to be all together, and still I don't have time to play. So that's sometimes difficult. But again, I get a lot of proposals and projects that I want to take part in, because I love my job, as I said, and it's hard to say no. But I do think that in terms of family, if you have the joy of living with your family, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to really connect and really find out more about them. And I know it's hard sometimes doing the cooking, the cleaning, and the teaching, because you also have to be a teacher right now, but still fortunate that my children are still able to go to their classes virtually, that they are able to connect with their teachers and with their friends. And again, really fortunate that we still have a job. We haven't lost our source of income. So I feel really, really blessed. And in Argentina right now, we are entering into spring. So maybe we don't get to hang out so often as we used to, but we can open the door and maybe just go for a walk in the park. And it's really, really beautiful.
Wonderful. And Javier?
Well, I feel great and I feel with a lot of energy, but it has not been like that all the time, to be honest with you. And because probably we were caught by surprise with all these issues of the virus and the lockdown. And probably we were working a lot more than normal because we wanted to be with all the people all the time. We wanted to demonstrate that we were still working and that we were engaged. And over time, you don't realize, but you start getting tired. And you get tired of being in isolation. You're tired of not being able to meet friends and family only virtually. In our case, we were landed in Sao Paulo right before the isolation, the lockdown. We lived here before twice, but you know, it was a new international relocation. So I'm going to share with you my secret. For me, the secret to feel well was to take vacations. And I took 10 days off.
Yes.
I completely did a break. And then I realized by going through that break that I was badly needing vacations. And that helped me, you know, step away from the work, think about myself, think about Carlos, my husband, how things were going, feel grateful for all the things that Carla and Delfina mentioned before, and get the energy to go back again to work and do the normal stuff with more passion. Now, honestly, sometimes I'm anxious because all the uncertainty about COVID doesn't allow us to plan. We cannot do a planification. We cannot say, in December, I'm going to go on vacations to this place because we don't know if we will be able to do it. But a little bit of balance. Again, secret weapon, vacations.
That's terrific. I think we should all have that as our mantra this year, if we can get it. Secret weapon is vacations. That's wonderful. Adi, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. My family, my friends too. But I little tired for the confinement and the isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult times for activist persons in this moment for COVID. Mm-hmm. But the energy high.
Mm-hmm. That's very hopeful. It is a very difficult time for advocates around the world, but particularly across, in Latin America right now, as Javier said, with so much uncertainty. I'm curious, and maybe I'll start with Carla and then ask Arivera, Delfina to jump in on this question. Winding back the clock to January, what have you said your priorities were in terms of LGBTQ inclusion, diversity and inclusion initiatives, and what has changed from those ideas in January, those goals, until now? So I begin with Carla.
Yeah, I think exceeded my expectations. At the beginning of 2021, when we start establishing our priorities, etc., obviously we were really focused on the inclusions for LGBTQ community. Okay, we have different initiatives. I will talk about that. But unfortunately, on March, this pandemic started. No? And I was a little afraid. No, what will happen with all the plans that we had? it was amazing how our employees in the region, were really engaged to switch and adapt all the priorities to work it virtually. In the first semester of the year, we had 77 different activities and events focusing on diversity and inclusion. It's more than the events that comparing with previous year. And this virtual, model helped us to launch events regionally and connect people from Canada and Bahamas in our events also. It was great. It was something good, no, that we learned during this time. We also launched a new training in Argentina. We started with Argentina, now is extending in the region, building acceptance training for all the employees and leaders to be conscious on how to include or work on the inclusions for LGBTQ community. We also, run the Journey to Inclusive Teams for Leaders. That is a training focusing on the inclusion to create these inclusive teams and have the dialogue, discussion, etc. We also launched You Belong Here. That it's a mandatory training focused on the diversity and inclusion topics, specifically to reduce the discrimination in the bank. And well, we also have a training for the transgender inclusion that will be, launched in Brazil this year. Additionally, we include, a new clause in our vendors contract, focusing, on the non-discrimination clause in our contract. Now is ready in Colombia, Mexico, and we are extending this for the rest of the region. In general, I think very engaged on the autism at work. We are offering different training, specifically in Mexico, focusing on the autism inclusion. We have now employees with autism working with us, same in Brazil and Argentina, with a very good results. And well, also very engaged in the corporate responsibility actions. Chile has been an amazing country, organizing the region on the difficult situations, in the difficult, focusing on the organizations that to help the difficult communities in this COVID time. Okay, we have different, training and dialogue around the education to reduce discrimination in the minorities, and it was a great initiative from that country. We received, awards. Chile got the Human Rights Campaign Award, being a best place to work for LGBT community. Mexico just closed, the application. We are going to receive the results at the end of October, I think, November. But well, we are pretty sure that we're going to get it. We received the PAR, distinction, focusing on the gender inclusion in Argentina, in Colombia. Now we're waiting the results for the rest of the region. We're very proud in general with the results and priorities that we established at the beginning of the year. A lot of engagement from our leaders to have to sponsor discussions to talk about the discrimination. Of course, George Floyd situation, it was it was a bomb, and in the bank, I think, is the first time that I listen leaders to talk about a specific situation that they faced in terms of discrimination, and share this dialogue with the employees and push them to speak up in order to reduce any potential issues in the bank, but also engage our employees to be an ambassadors of the inclusive culture in their communities. I think has been amazing year for us in diversity and inclusion in JP Morgan.
That's amazing, Carla. I might follow up because you have a purview across the Americas. Where have you seen the fastest change? And where are you seeing places that have required maybe more support or more unique challenges, particularly with LGBTQ inclusion?
You know, it was a surprise for me. Chile as a country, okay, has been really engaged, and Chile has demonstrated that no matter how conservative is the country, you can, you know, move the needle. Chile is providing also mentoring to local companies to be part of this momentum, you know, to change specifically for the LGBTQ inclusion. The thing that I believe I need to push more is the transgender inclusion in the entire region. Okay, that is an important topic for us, and we need, you know, to continue working on to create conscious and to teach our community, you know, on the inclusion matters, focusing on the trans people. We launched different panels also in LATAM with our trans employees from the different regions. And it was an amazing conversation, and the event was completely full. And that is a very good signal. But of course, we need to continue, you know, looking for talent, specifically in that community. In the rest of the countries, I think we are moving really well. Argentina, it's really open. Argentina is really engaged with the different initiatives that we have implemented for the LGBT community. They are now the regional representation for the chapter, no, for the region, and participate in the global discussions. And you know, Brazil is really conscious. We need, specifically, I saw issues in Brazil because of the laws and the community, specifically for the country, no? But well, the company, I think, is really engaged on those principles. I need to continue working in Bahamas. Bahamas for me, it's a new country in my scope. I need to push and understand the culture of that country, and working with our employees to get more engaged in our diversity. That is, I think, my main challenge right now, and the priority that it's in my head right now for the region that I manage. Additionally, and this is something that I didn't mention, but focusing on the race inclusion, we need to continue increasing, you know, the resource and efforts in Brazil. We recently launched a program for analysts. The Future Black Leaders is the name of the program. But we need, you know, to continue working with the bank, but also with the community, trying to push the development opportunities for the Afro community in Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Carla. I think, let me jump to Arivera and then Delphi and Javier. Arivera, of course, you born in Mexico, grew up in Mexico, and you do your advocacy primarily in Mexico, but you have a sphere of influence across Latin America. Yeah. Do you want to talk some, Spanish or English, do you want to talk some about how you view the state of transgender equality in Latin America right now?
Esa respuesta es un poco difícil porque la región latina en torno a los derechos de la comunidad trans está muy segmentada y es muy diferente. Hoy por hoy podemos ver Argentina acaba de emitir la ley de cupo laboral, donde el 1% de los empleos dentro del gobierno argentino tiene que estar destinado a personas trans. Pero que esta ley es una conquista de la organización trans, o sea, de las organizaciones civiles en pro de los derechos de la comunidad LGBTI. y que hoy Argentina lo que provoca es subir el estándar muy alto al resto de los países de nuestra región, por supuesto. México, en el caso de México, el tema de inclusión laboral implementado desde el gobierno está muy lejano, lo vemos poco realizable en estos momentos. Sin embargo, quien ha comenzado a generar estrategias para incluir las personas trans es la iniciativa privada, son las empresas. Empresas en México son quienes están apuntalando la inclusión de las personas trans en el mundo laboral, que falta mucho por trabajar, es verdad, pero la iniciativa privada es quien está llevando todavía mucho más ventaja que los gobiernos. Y si hablamos de los gobiernos centroamericanos, pues la situación es mucho más difícil porque ni gobierno ni empresas están tocando el tema de las personas trans, ¿no? Depende mucho de la región. Desafortunadamente tenemos que reconocer que también el mundo empresarial, las corporaciones, están cooptadas por grupos antiderechos y religiosos, que sus prejuicios contra las personas de la diversidad se ven reflejados a la hora de incluir laboralmente u ofrecer empleos. Entonces, Argentina, mismo Uruguay, tienen unos muy buenos ejemplos y que ponen, sobre todo, dan un mensaje de congruencia con sus empresas. Yo como gobierno, ¿cómo le exijo a la empresa que cree que cree y fomente la inclusión laboral si yo como gobierno no lo hago? Entonces, me parece que Argentina hoy pone un estándar muy alto a seguir de los demás países en torno a la inclusión de las personas trans.
Super. Gracias. Thank you so much, Arivera. I think Arivera makes so many good points. And one of them that probably we should have addressed at the start of this is we have a lot of panels about Latin America, and we should not and do not take for granted that we can truly assess or talk about the future of Latin America as one monolithic unit. There's great variation, as you said, Arivera, in terms of the laws, in terms of the cultural backdrop. And then, of course, there are deep divides between rural and urban. You know, the experience in Mexico City is going to be often vastly different from the states, you know, many, many kilometers away. Even within Argentina, which, you know, we often hold up in great esteem for good reason with the great cultural and legal change that has happened. Not everyone has the Buenos Aires experience. And so maybe now I'll turn to Delfina and Javier to talk about both how you view the momentum in your home countries now, currently your home countries, and then because your positions do, the practical reality is so many of our corporations and international organizations like ILGALAC, we have to sort of organize ourselves. We have to say, okay, we need to talk about Latin America. What are our common goals? What are some of the unique challenges? So given that bit of a dichotomy between recognizing the unique experiences within a country and also that there are some regional trends, Delfina, do you want to talk about in your role, when you started 2020, what were some of the things on your mind? What has changed and where do you think we're going?
Okay. Well, I don't think that our priorities in terms of inclusion have changed dramatically. What we are trying to do is just to support our employees more, especially those who, for different reasons, belong to the minority groups that we tend to focus on. But I have to agree with Carla. I was amazed at our Pride Month. Of course, June seems like a zillion miles away right now, but it was just around the corner. But it was amazing how we just united our powers and did use a good use and benefited from the virtuality that we had to to do. There were a lot of events we did regionally. We now have what we call our business resource groups, or in other companies they call employee resource groups of affinity groups. We now have LGBT plus groups in almost the 10 countries we have in Latin America. I think, except for Ecuador, we have active communities in all countries, and that's a very good sign, because we, for the past years, particularly in the smaller countries, for us, in terms of volume or amount of employees, we didn't have them. So we're very active, and we had events in every region where we were able to communicate. We had panels inspiring our employees just to be themselves, and where we had employees representing each of the acronyms of LGBT+, just sharing their experiences. We also had external events, particularly one we had focused on the trans community, and we had different people just sharing their experiences. We were also able to promote one of the digital badges we offer employees on how to become an ally for the LGBT+ community, and we had an increase of almost 25% in employees applying to get that badge. I saw a lot of action in the different Pride Connections communities that they have in every country. And I have seen how they are starting to speak with each other. Maybe the one in Mexico was one of the first ones, and the one in Brazil, but they really didn't have a lot of interaction. Now the one in Argentina also had their big event a few weeks ago. But they're really trying and speaking among themselves and trying to learn from each other's experience. So I think, again, we didn't change our priorities, but we were really able to give a different experience to our employees and to really show them how we were supporting them if they belong to one of these communities. And again, another thing that I was really good to see, even if it was due to the racism events in the US, was that how our different communities, like the Afro communities, were able also to be supported by the LGBT community. And when we were launching our Pride Month, we also launched an Embrace campaign to let people really know, okay, we're here for you. What can I do to help? I want to understand more about what you're feeling and going through right now. So I really do feel that due to this context, and because we are all just getting to know our team members and our colleagues' houses and families and everything, we now really get to be more connected. And I think that was a really, really good thing that came out of this pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Delphi. And Javier?
Well, I would say that probably our inclusion initiatives have not changed the principles, but on the tactics. We needed to move everything to virtual. And originally, some of the initiatives started to evolve rather than change because of how events ended up happening. For instance, we had a very strong initiative towards African descendant inclusions within DOW, same as Carla mentioned before. But obviously, all the events tended to accelerate the actions. And one for me of the key ones that I found out, similar to the inclusion of transgender people, is that we need to solve the cultural and social disadvantage that they come to, with which they come to our companies in order to help them succeed. So, for instance, in the area of African descendant inclusions, we started a program to support students, African descendant students in a university. And we not only pay them for being there studying, but we also support them, coach them, and mentoring them through the 3 years of studies. Hopefully, when they graduate, they become DOW employees and we start including them in our group. But if they choose to go and work somewhere else, anyway, we did something for the inclusion. In the case of transgender, the trans we learned. We have in DOW a program that has been there for 2 years. It started in Brazil and continued in Argentina. We are soon going to incorporate it in Colombia and Mexico, which is incorporating trans people as trainees in our companies. But I'll tell you something, Dina, we learned in this exercise, because we also learned that if we cannot work on the background, on the educational background, because we want to hire them directly, we need to give them a very specific training program. It's all been a learning and evolving experience. And specifically on what we call the horizontal cross-fertilizations, the different ERGs, a week ago, I think we had an event with suppliers and customers where we have 5 people from, they happen to be all females. One of them was deaf and lesbian. One of them was Black and lesbian. One of them was transgender, sharing their experience, sharing with suppliers and customers their learnings as individuals in a company so that they could accelerate the inclusion in the companies that they work with DOW. So it's been exciting. I will never say that it's not exciting being in the inclusion area, but it's been an evolving topic for us.
I'm wondering, number one, do you know many peers of yours, other executives who are openly LGBTQ in your field or in Latin America broadly? And, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, did you think that we would be where we are today in terms of corporations providing safe haven for the LGBTQ community?
That's a nice question, to be honest. Firstly, I don't know many gay executives in Latin America. Maybe in other places in the world there are, but in Latin America, I have not seen it. And surprisingly, I was invited to join a forum of 100 presidents and CEOs in Brazil that support the LGBTQ initiatives. I introduced myself. I discovered that I was the first president of a company being gay. Wow. In a of 100 presidents that support the LGBTQ. I said, okay, I'm the first one. Hopefully I'm not going to be the last one, because we need to have a continuation here of these initiatives. So it's not there yet. I believe it's important for my colleagues in DOW. If you join the company in Latin America and you're part of the LGBT community, and you look at the executive team, what we call the Latin American leadership team, and you see that one of the members of that Latin American leadership team managed to get to a key position being gay, you will say, I have chances. That's for me. And if you're a female and you see females, more than 50% of my leadership team in Latin America are women, and you join as a woman, you say, I can make it there. And that's, for me, one of the most important, if I may say, legacies. I'm not yet to retire, so but if I say legacy, is that people can reflect on saying, I can make it if I join this company, because this company is really inclusive.
Yeah.
Now, going to how everything looked back 20 years ago, I joined the company 30 years ago, and 4 months later, I got engaged with Carlos. Carlos joined me in all this life and work journey for 30 years. But he was not always public. Many times I had to go to events and he was staying at home, yet taking care of me, yet taking care of my clothes, my appearance, my speech, my look, my agenda whatsoever, but in the shadows. Have I thought about him being with me in a DOW event 20 years ago or 15 years ago? Definitely not. So for me, it's amazing, an amazing progress and evolution to get to a moment when I get to work in a company where the CEO openly, in front of, at that time, 55,000 employees, openly mentions that he's gay. And I think I mentioned it before. He created the safety net through which everybody can be honest and authentic and say who you are and how you are. It's not that it was suicide by telling people that I was gay and I was going to suffer discrimination. No, there was a safety net that I knew it was going to protect me. And that's the reason why I jumped. And that's the reason why more people jumped into being openly the way they are. And I can only be thankful for that evolution of the world, society, and the companies, and specifically my company. Although I have colleagues from other companies that I know it's in the same way. So more or less, I think I managed to answer your 2 questions or challenges.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Javier. And I think you stand as an example, and you're right. When people can see you modeling authentic leadership, they feel that they have a future in that path. I'm going to turn to Arivera, and I hope not embarrass Arivera, and then back to Delfina, because Arivera, one of our mutual friends, Carmen, has said, you will be the first transgender president of Mexico. You have inspired so many people, and if we're going to have the first transgender president, it will be Arivera, and we will all work on your campaign, I think, right? You already have your campaign and your cabinet here. But truly, what have you seen? You are now a very visible leader in Mexico and across Latin America. What are, transgender women 10, 15 years younger than you saying to you? I know you're very young yourself, but, you must be seeing some changes with, very young activists.
Es importante mencionar que el movimiento trans en realidad es un movimiento muy joven, como movimiento organizado. Estamos hablando que el movimiento de las personas trans comenzó en los finales de los años 90, principios de los años 2000, y que en realidad tenemos 20 años de una lucha constante por nuestros derechos, y por lo tanto somos un movimiento joven que incluye diferentes generaciones de personas trans. Hay personas trans jóvenes, hay personas trans muy jóvenes como yo, hay personas no tan jóvenes, hay diferentes edades que confluyen en este mismo movimiento. Y eso al mismo tiempo se vuelve complejo por las necesidades tan diferentes. Por ejemplo, en estos momentos se necesita, como la ley de Uruguay, comenzar a buscar medidas de reparación de aquellas personas trans, sobre todo mujeres, que fueron perseguidas por gobiernos con una base en una dictadura, ¿no? Como fue en Argentina, como fue en Uruguay. Y que hoy son mujeres que durante ese tiempo nunca pudieron entrar a un trabajo, no pudieron alcanzar a una seguridad social, no pudieron tener una pensión alimenticia y que hoy se encuentran en una gran desventaja de precarización económica ante esa exclusión y esa persecución por parte del Estado. Entonces hay una lucha por reparar económicamente esa persecución. Por otro lado, existe una generación de personas trans que estamos en búsqueda de que los derechos hoy, en estos momentos, me sean reconocidos y sean garantizados. Que se me garantice el acceso a la salud, que se me garantice el acceso a mi reconocimiento de identidad, que se me garantice la inclusión laboral. Y hay otro movimiento de personas trans jóvenes que tenemos que apoyarles para crear escuelas, por ejemplo, libres de discriminación y que no enfrenten exclusión a futuro. Entonces, el movimiento trans en estos momentos es un movimiento muy joven que arropa diferentes generaciones. Es un movimiento que también depende de los contextos en los que estamos, dependiendo si estamos al norte de América, al centro de América o al sur de América, pero que al final el no vernos la edad entre nosotras y vernos como pares entre nosotras, aunque seamos jóvenes, aunque seamos mayores o aunque seamos las infancias, hoy por hoy, esa unidad de vernos que todas pasamos por la misma situación hace que se fortalezca nuestro movimiento y hace que se fortalezca la lucha en acceso a los derechos.
Delphi, you were raising your hand. You may have had a thought and more to say now that Arivera has spoken. Gracias, Arivera.
Yes, sorry, I wanted just to continue what Javier was explaining about the importance for any employee to just see a leader he or she can relate to in terms of thinking, okay, I do have the opportunity to progress in this company. I think that's a very, very powerful message. And he was mentioning that he was the only executive or president of a company in a large group of companies who were already supporting the LGBTQ community. And I think that's something that in Latin America, we really need to keep on working to understand, do we really not have anyone who has had the opportunity to progress being a member of the LGBTQ community, or because of different reasons, that person still hasn't been able to really come out as a member of the LGBT community. And in IBM, we do have a program, it's global and it's called Out Executives. And it's basically to just show, particularly to people who are joining the organization, that they do have the opportunity to reach the C-level if they are LGBTQ. The reality is that over 90% of these executives are in the US and the other 10% is in Europe. So what do we do in our regions? And for that, a few years ago, we launched the Outroll Model program. It's not very different, but we tend to give exposure to people who are in lower levels. They are still not in the executive level, but they are still regarded as a role model by their peers. They are subject matter experts in their areas, and they are openly out in the workplace. And these are people that we want to really give visibility, so that when probably other people from different generations, when they join IBM, they are able to see, okay, I can relate to that person, and now I can feel comfortable coming out. And we do have a lot of examples of people who actually came out in IBM before coming out to their families. And I think that's what we really need to create in our organizations, to create this inclusive workplace where our employees can really say, I can be myself here and I can be safe, even if when, I don't know, if in this context of lockdowns and pandemic, when I go out in the street, I really cannot be myself because I don't feel safe. When I go into my company, I do. I know that my manager and that my peers and that everyone really respects me and accepts me as I am, and that I am empowered to say I am a member of the LGBTQ community.
Thank you so much, Delphi. One thing that I will say, because I have worked now for so long, particularly with Dow, with IBM, with JP Morgan, one of the many aspects of the company's culture that I admire so much and I think is so important to LGBTQ inclusion is that you are with companies that demonstrate being out, being openly LGBTQ. It's not just a privilege when you become the CEO or you're in the C-suite. It's an intrinsic part of your career. And so I have known people at all of your companies who within the first few years of joining, you know, they're in their 20s or they're in their early 30s, and they get leadership roles in the employee resource group, and they become even more creative and energized in their work. And I think, frankly, if more companies did that and didn't just show sort of the glossy C-suite version of being openly LGBTQ, but to show that at every level, this is part of who you are, and it's part of the depth and breadth of life experience that you bring to your role. And so I think that all three of your firms should get a lot of, kudos for that. And the credit certainly in terms of the leadership the three of you have provided is extraordinary. Carla, I wasn't sure if you wanted to get in on this part of the conversation, or I was going to move to another question, but I want to make sure you have an opportunity.
Very quick. I more than agree that we need the leaders' representations to move the needles. And well, we are the fortune to have in JP Morgan the LGBT Executive Council. No, that is, you know, Stacy Friedman, Ken Jensen are part of this group of leaders in the LGBT community, and I think this is as you mentioned, as Delphi and Javier mentioned, it is really, you know, something that inspire others to be, you know, to feel safe in a safe environment and feel that they belong in the company, no, and they can be themselves. No, that is something that I fully agree that it's an important practice for the organizations, and starting with these private, you know, firms. But well, it is important for all of us to have that kind of model to help us to create this inclusive environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to switch a little bit to some, this is going to be a little bit more about challenges. We've got about half an hour left, and I think that in our earlier call, we walked into some very important topics, which is, you know, around the world right now, there's been a lot of talk about how the pandemic and how wide-scale lockdowns and the need for social distancing has affected our emotional health and our mental health. What are some topics that we are not talking enough about in terms of how working from home is affecting people, being stuck in one's home is affecting people? What are some of the challenges that we as leaders really need to break the silence on? Javier, I may start with you because I think you very thoughtfully raised the issue of domestic violence when we spoke earlier.
One of our major concerns, Dina, has been domestic violence. And that was started, again, before pandemic times, because we joined the Avon Foundation in something called in Brazil, Isoladas sin sozinhas now, which means isolated, yes, but not alone. But over time, we also discovered that domestic violence could also happen to LGBTQ members because they were forced to stay at home longer. And obviously this affects our psychology and our behavior. It also affects the psychology and behavior of our parents, relatives, or other members of the family that live with you. So we ended up discovering that a lot of members of the LGBTQ community were suffering some domestic violence. So we put in place some discipline actions through our, what we call the employee experience groups, in asking them. Let me step back for a second. I put in place a bi-weekly communications with all the employees of the geography. So I was having an hour in Portuguese with Brazil, an hour in Argentinian Spanish with the Argentinians, another with the Andean region, an hour with Mexico, one after the other, 4 sessions, talking to them and letting them know that we were still with them, even though they were not protected in the shelter of the offices. Mm-hmm. Place that did needed to be a conversation, and therefore the employee experience group, every time that we were doing these conversations, and they were not communication sessions, they were conversations, that we were asking them questions, what was affecting them psychologically or physically the most? So we started to understand which were the factors, either work security, other ergonomics of working from home, or taking care of family and relatives that were in the risky groups. And in that area, we also discovered that eventually the topic of domestic violence could be an issue. So we have different plans in place, more importantly, probably about psychological support for everybody there. And it's still my concern, to be honest with you, because we see the number of domestic violence increase by 56% in Brazil. I think it was like 36 in Colombia. I don't think we have numbers for Argentina. Delphi, maybe you got them, but it also happened, and we need to actively work in that area. So sad that this happens, good that groups of people and entities and companies that we want to work in order to try to tackle or mitigate the actions there.
More companies can be speaking up with more clarity to even name the problem of domestic violence as something that is affecting their employees. As you cited, we know that documented rates of domestic violence are high, and that, of course, doesn't even touch on the level of undocumented, unreported rates of domestic violence. And domestic violence transcends all types of relationships and family configurations. Delphi and Carla, you're shaking your head. What are some of these other challenges that you're observing that your companies are starting to address, or that you think more of us should be talking about?
Carla, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, okay, I can. I think, you know, of course, now the challenge is that the people is afraid. Okay, no matter that, you know, we have certain guidance now. Chile is working on the return to the office. When the people start listening about return to the office is something that in the mind I'm not ready to do it. The people is feeling, you know, and it's really afraid about the topic. That is something that we need to start, you know, working on the return to the office. Of course, the company is really focused to keep, you know, the main priorities for JP Morgan is to keep the healthy and the secure environment for our employees. That is the priority. Mm-hmm. And well, but I saw also in my with my kids, with my husband, the people feel afraid because the uncertainty continues and we don't know what happened. Mexico rates, for instance, talking about the COVID cases, is increasing. Now the city is a little, you know, the numbers are a little better, but we never know. You saw one day and you saw the other, and the numbers are completely, you know, different. There is not a tendency to reduce the COVID cases in our city. However, also the cases in Argentina, the strong lockdown that they have faced. I had different conversation with employees in Argentina that are really anxious to go out because it's a lot of time that they have been just at home. No, it has been also hard. Also the winter for them. You know, to not have contact with families, with friends. Recently, we managed a case for a Mexican employee that was transferred to Argentina, and was completely alone. Okay, the situation for him was really hard. The manager in Argentina called me and said, "Carla, we need to transfer him to Mexico. If not, we're going to lose him." That is the kind of situation that our employees are facing. Of course, we have, you know, created an important support in terms of the resources for them. As you mentioned, we have the psychological support, the well-being support. We have different, you know, resources for them to use it. It is incredible to see an organization in the financial industry just giving classes for the mindfulness sessions, or, you know, how to meditate. It is incredible to have that kind of dialogue and information to our employees. 20 years ago, I never imagined that we are going to provide this kind of dialogue for our employees in the bank or in the financial industry. Talking about the supports, obviously we offer different sessions to our leaders, just you know, to help them to keep the connectivity with their employees, and additionally, you know, to lead with compassion, because of course there is a lot of cases at home in which the parents, both of them, are challenging with the kids in this school model, virtual school model, in which obviously the schools, and thinking in the primary schools or kindergartens, I cannot imagine the challenge for those parents, you know, to help their kids to keep engaged with the schools virtually. It is something and that we had worked. Also, we create different, you know, virtual sessions with our leaders to share, you know, experience best practices, dialogue, and give them resources to keep, the energy. As Javier mentioned it, not all the time the people keep the same level of energy. And we need, to create resilient leaders and resilient employees. That is something that we have also working and put as, as resource for our community in JP Morgan. It is not easy, Dina. There is not an answer on how to manage or drive or help or provide guidance. Or no, we try to follow the most strong protocols for our employees in general. For those that are returning to the office, of course, the protocols are really strong. We create different training because we need all of us. We need to use mask when we be in the office and follow different strict, guidance to keep the security and safe environment for us in the companies. It is not easy. It is a big change. Okay, and we need to continue working, continue creating dialogue, continue discussing, and be flexible. Be flexible because we will have different situations with some employees that are, part of the vulnerable, population that could not be returned and will not return until we find a solution for this pandemic. No? And just giving, the opportunity for them to extern what are the personal situation, and we in the company try to fix it and be flexible to help. But that is how we see these challenges in the pandemic that we are facing in the world.
Thank you so much, Carla. I'm taking notes as you speak. It's been either a long time or this is one of the first times that in a business-centered conversation, we are talking about mindfulness. We're talking about compassion. We're talking about the need to breathe, to exhale, to be kinder and more gentle to one another. I'll turn to Arivera and Delphi with this next question, which is, what are some of the lessons and changes that have come about as a result of the pandemic that you hope will continue beyond the end of the pandemic?
Okay, so let me share our experience. Well, for the past few years, we have been working on enabling our leaders on the principles of power of positive leadership. And I think that they are more needed, very, very much needed at this point. So we are really inviting our leaders to be present, to really engage with their teams, to understand what are their feelings, what are their particular needs, because we need to understand that, well, yes, this is a global situation and we are all going through the same storm, but we are not on the same boat. And we have people who are maybe comfortable on a cruise, and some people who have a small kayak with a hose and just keep on letting water out so to stop from drowning. So we really need to understand the particular situation of every one of our employees. We have been promoting some of the tools we had before, but that we think that in this context are really very much needed, as already Carla and Javier mentioned, mindfulness, yoga, meditation, counsel, support for every one of our employees and their families. And again, some of the things we're already doing, one of the things Javier mentioned at the beginning, like the secret weapon, is vacation. When this whole thing started in March and April, we started to promote among our employees, take a vacation, take some time off to connect with your family. And some even, I myself included, we said, but I don't want to take a vacation if I'm not allowed to go anywhere. And at first it was, well, maybe you take a day or two, but people were really starting to understand and see the value of that. And now, a few weeks ago, we announced an extra 20 days off for employees, particularly to those who have small children, because it's really, really, the energy that consumes is a lot. So that was something that we are really talking a lot with our managers. And we have been offering different spaces like leadership talks. We have meetings with all our managers once a month, and the topics used to be more on the business side before, and now they are all about how to engage your team virtually, how can we support you, how can we help. We are offering a lot of coaching to our leaders. We have been even in the town meetings, this sort of meetings that Javier mentioned he has with all the employees in different countries. The topics that we're covering are not so much on the results we achieve. Yes, we do present results and we do recognize the teams who helped achieve the results, but in every message that all of our GMs, our general managers in the different countries, there's always, they begin with thank you, I hope you and your family are well. So it's really showing how our leaders are really committed to being closer to our employees. And one thing that really struck us when we started, we are sort of conducting anonymous how are you service to our employees. And when, a few months ago, one of the questions was, well, how are you in this context? Like you asked us, and over 85 to 90% said, I'm sad, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm frustrated. But then the second question was, how do you feel in terms of the support you're getting from your manager or from IBM in general, in terms of how can you do your work, or how can you manage the workload and the hours of the day that you are doing your work? And again, over to 85% of our employees said, I really feel that I do get the support I need. So it's really, really important to enable our leaders, well, at least when you, in really large companies like Dow or IBM or JP Morgan, where the leader is like the go-to person for every employee, you really need to understand and be closer to that person, understand their needs. Even if it's just, okay, today we, in one of the manager groups, group chats that we have, there was one employee who had the charger to her notebook had broken. So, well, how can we help? And everyone was just throwing in ideas. Okay, I think she lives near to my house and I can go on. And we helped that employee in less than 5 minutes to get her laptop back to work. So I think it's really being closer. And we are inviting our teams in the different countries to sort of do a social contract. Okay, do not hold meetings, I don't know, from 2 hours at lunchtime, because we need to allow for our employees to be able maybe to prepare food, and maybe if they have small children or different things that they have to do. Please try not to hold meetings very early in the morning or very late in the afternoon, and unless you consult with your team and they are all okay. So sort of do a social contract and establish when do you think the team will be able to do their best work in this context.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Delphi. And it's amazing how it does take a shared challenge to bring about some common sense solutions, to check in what works for you. Are you in the early morning or in the evening? I really love the image you outlined of the storm. Yes, we are all in the same storm. We are not all in the same boat. Here in the United States, the rates of COVID and the most devastating effects have been concentrated particularly in communities of color. Black and brown Americans have suffered the most from COVID. And so you're absolutely right that not everyone is situated in the same way to deal with this. Let me ask you, Arivera, do you think that will society be kinder after the pandemic?
A ver, lo que nos dejó la pandemia, sobre todo a muchos de los colectivos LGBTI, es definitivamente la solución de enfrentar esta situación es el trabajo comunitario, ¿no? En la unión está la fuerza. El vernos a todas las personas como iguales, en pares, sin tomar en cuenta características de edad, sexo, identidad, raza, porque al final la pandemia nos afectó a todos, de manera diferenciada, sí, algunos grupos de una manera mucho más fuerte que otros, a otras personas no les afectó de igual manera por tener un privilegio, por tener una casa, por tener acceso a internet, a la información, y otras personas no, sobre todo en el tema de las personas trans. Algunas terminaron en la calle, viviendo en la calle, algunas fueron amonestadas por salir a comprar los víveres en un día que no les correspondía de acuerdo a su identidad, como el caso de Panamá y Colombia. Y algunas personas también escuchamos en la sociedad como, pues ojalá, decían, ojalá entrara el COVID a las cárceles y murieran todas las personas de las cárceles. Entonces, vimos cómo la sociedad se polarizó a partir de pensar en sí mismas. Y esa no es la solución. La solución es enfrentar un problema que nos afecta a todos en unidad, en trabajo en conjunto, viéndonos a todos como pares. Y yo creo que eso es lo que nos enseña y estaremos reflexionando en los próximos tiempos de la pandemia. Y en ese sentido, antes de olvidar de decir mi última idea, es importante mencionar que las empresas que son ejemplo, que las empresas que tienen políticas de diversidad e inclusión, que las empresas que aseguran un espacio de inclusión libre de discriminación, tienen mejores efectos positivos en las personas LGBTI más allá que los propios gobiernos. Es decir, si una empresa a través de sus sucursales, a través de estas políticas desde la alta dirección, llegan a lugares, en estados o países en donde el propio país no te reconoce o no asegura tu identidad y orientación, y tú como empresa lo estás haciendo, le cambias la vida, le cambias su entorno, le cambias toda la perspectiva a una persona LGBTI en donde no está encontrando un Estado que le garantice su bienestar y seguridad, pero una empresa sí. Y entonces la empresa se vuelve un agente de cambio con efecto multiplicador. Y eso es lo que nos debe enseñar esta pandemia.
Super. Thank you so much. And so in closing, we would love to hear from you. What keeps you hopeful right now? What message would you like to give your future self 1 year from now in 2021? Javier, can we start with you?
Okay, Dina, the first thing that gives me hope is seeing Ari Vera going for president of Mexico. I will not be able to vote there, but I have my firm commitment to you, Ari, that I will be leading your campaign. The other thing that gives me hope is that as soon as all this is over, I will be able to travel again. You know, being a commercial guy, I've never stayed at home for 7 consecutive months without going anywhere. So probably I need it, and my husband needs me to travel also. A mutual request. And a little bit more seriously, I have the hope of being able to meet personally a lot of people in the whole organization that I lead, because as I told you before, I joined to this role in the beginning of the year, and 2.5 months later, the pandemic started. And surprisingly, there's one point that I got to be thankful to the COVID, which is that it allowed me to get closer to the people in a way that I would have never managed to do it in the normal times. And I look forward, when all this is over, to be able to go and then, depending on the cultural paradigms, give them a hug, a kiss, whatsoever, but be closer to them. And I'm really look forward to that moment.
That's perfect, Javier. Thank you so much. Okay, shall we go to the next president, Ari Vera?
Lo que me mantiene esperanza, por supuesto, que es el ejemplo que el activismo LGBT ha instaurado en toda la región Latinoamérica, esta alta resiliencia y esta resistencia que, por supuesto, Esto en futuros años convertiremos a un mundo mucho más habitable y tendremos un lugar mejor donde vivir para todas las personas, ¿no? Y que yo le diría a mí misma en el futuro, sigamos luchando, ¿no? Sigamos trabajando, sigamos viéndonos como iguales, como hermanos y hermanes, y en el siguiente año esperemos todos estar festejando de otra manera con nuestros familiares y nuestras amistades, por supuesto.
Yeah, super. Delphi and then Carla.
Okay, what gives me hope? You asked Ari a while ago if she thought that the world would be a better place after this pandemic ends. Well, first, I don't think the pandemic is going to end. We'll need to just live with this new virus as we have been living with other illnesses and overcome them. I do believe that we are getting braver in terms of, okay, now I can speak, because you have seen me in all my vulnerability. You have seen my home, you have seen me with my wrinkles, you have seen me in pajamas, you have seen my family crying, and I do think that this can make us stronger. It's amazing, all the things that we didn't think possible that we would be able to do virtually or remotely, that we have seen that it's possible. I don't know, in IBM, only in Argentina, we have over 100 employees who just joined us in this month of the pandemic, and we were able to do everything virtually, just send them the computers to their homes and get the teams and the onboarding. Everything has been done virtually, signing contracts, even in very bureaucratic things of presenting our balances in different organizations. We have been able to do that paperless and remotely. So I think that gives us courage to do the things we maybe refrained from doing before. I know some things we said, no, this is better if we talk it face to face. So let's wait until we can all be under the same roof to have this discussion. No, we can do it even if we are not be able to see each other. What gives me hope is that this being globally, again, there are a lot of people who are working on a solution, on a vaccine, and people are really trying to see, okay, we are not all on the same boat again, and trying to understand how different minorities are hanging, and how, in terms of education, how for people who aren't able to get a good internet connection or a device to log in and see their teachers, how can we help them first instead of the rest? And what would I say to myself? Just enjoy the moment, because you never know how your life is going to change drastically, and all the plans maybe we had for this year, well, we had to rethink them. And again, it's not a bad thing. And a lot of, at the beginning, a lot of us were saying, oh, I have to stay at home, and how am I going to manage? And it's doable. We've been doing it for 10 months, and I think we will emerge stronger. So I think the next time I'm able to see my friends and my family, I'm going to hug them so strongly that probably I break their bones, but I'm really going to enjoy kissing them and hugging them and sharing a typical beverage we have here in Argentina. It's a mate, and something it's not very hygienic, because basically you share a straw with everyone. But those small things, the free things in life that we probably don't enjoy, like walking around on a sunny day and just walking on the grass with your bare feet, things that you really don't enjoy because you're just so overwhelmed by the day-to-day routine. I think that's a thing we will be able to enjoy.
Super. Thank you so much, Delphi and Carla.
Thank you, Dina. Amazing thoughts, no, in general. I think something that keep me hopefully is, you know, that this will end. that we will get through this, you know, and nothing is impossible. That is something that I have been thinking and try to transmit the message. No, this to share past, no, and additionally, I think something that inspired me for next year is that we continue this dialogue, that we continue doing these amazing things as organization, keep you know, this commitment and be those agent of change, and you know, try to influence and inspire others to continue this road. One thing that I, you know, if I think in the future, I said, Carla, calm. Everything, you know, it's good, and you need to continue enjoy your life. It is good to connect with your kids. No? It is good to connect with your husband. This pandemic dynamic has been changed a lot, had a lot of challenges, but in the end, I feel really proud of the family that we, my husband and I, created. No? It is something that we need to feel proud of.
Super. Thank you so much, Carla. This has been incredibly moving. Thank you all so much for your work every single day, your leadership, and the heart that you put into your words today, the insights that you shared. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
this opportunity.
A big pleasure.
Thank you.